Hey, what's up? Welcome to Cohn and Hensley, aka Mondays with Ryan, aka the Monday Morning Show. It's 2 in the afternoon over here in Orlando, Florida, at the NFL annual meeting. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Ryan G. Hensley, who's chilling in Sac. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing? How's the weather in Florida? Is it nice?
It's okay. It's windy. I've never been to Orlando before. It's the one big city in Florida that's not on a beach. They have a bunch of amusement parks. So if you're into that, it's pretty cool. I mean, what's wrong with it? It's pretty cool so far. Nickelodeon Studios was here when I was a kid. I always wanted to come here, but it doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know what to do, essentially.
Have you been to Disney World? Now's your opportunity.
No. Would you go to Disney World on your own?
This is going to be bad, man, but I don't like Disneyland at all. I know that's horrible. That sounds horrible. If I was a kid, yes.
Bad?
It's like you stand in line and you get on like 4 rides all day long. It's like 5 rides. I know you got to get the fast pass, all that, but like it's just I'm not into large crowds. I'm not into Disneyland. I hate to say that out loud because I know it's like the happiest place on earth, supposedly.
Well, I guess you can just skip Orlando. I'm having a great time though. They had the NFL. They're having the NFL annual meeting. John Lynch spoke today. There's going to be like a little. Well, here's the schedule. Get there at 7 a.m. today. Get my credential. AFC coaches talk from 7:45 to 18. I was with Harbaugh. Gotta be. Then Lynch talked informally today at noon. Posted the video. Tonight there's like a informal schmooze meet and greet where coaches and riders kind of like drink together. I've never done this before, so it'll be interesting. No one's gonna have their recorders out. This is supposed to be informal.
You and Kyle, it's about to be. Grant Cohn's partying with Kyle Shanahan tonight. You heard it here first. It's going down.
I was in a fraternity, all right. I don't mess around.
I love that.
And then tomorrow, like, you really can't get too messed up tonight. Not that we would, because we're so professional. Because tomorrow morning, Kyle Shanahan talks at 7:45. So I got to have my wits about me. And also, like, even though I'm not working, it's like I kind of want to remember what he says. So have a good time tonight, work tomorrow, and then get out of here Wednesday.
The question is, are you more faded now or were you more faded at the Super Bowl press conference, Kyle? That's the question.
Ooh. That's tough. Ooh. Let's see if I can get through without him punching me in the face.
That's the goal.
You will.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That would be awesome.
Okay, so John Lynch spoke today, and he talked about all the free agents they signed. He likes all the free agents they signed. Did you know that? He likes them all.
I'm not surprised.
It's incredible.
Not surprised.
Yeah. So that was breaking news. John Lynch likes the free agents he signed. There was some news about Brandon Aiyuk. He's asked, are you fielding calls about trading Brandon Aiyuk? And he said, absolutely not. We are actively talking with Brandon Aiyuk, and we want him on this team. But it's kind of one of those things where it takes two sides to agree. So and then Brandon Aiyuk went on Instagram and wrote a not so cryptic message.
Yeah. Money talks and BS walks. In emojis.
Okay. That's pretty easy to decipher. So right after John Lynch says, we want him. He's our kind of guy. We developed him. But how much are you going to offer me? Seems like Brandon isn't exactly in the mood to. Yeah. F you, pay me. Doesn't seem like he's in the mood to give the Niners a break. At least not yet. But it also doesn't seem like the Niners are losing hope. It feels like this is going to sort of drag on like the Debo one did.
Yeah, we've seen this show before, right? We saw George Kittle. We saw it with Debo. We saw it with Nick Bosa. And now it seems to be playing out with Brandon Aiyuk. And it's the same pattern. The 49ers, for whatever reason, like to extend people in the late summer, whereas I don't understand that really. I don't know what their philosophy is behind that and why they choose to go that route, because it seems like to me you'd rather do it early, and then you're setting the market. You're not having to compete with other players that sign for a lot of money, right? So I don't understand why they're doing it. I anticipate, it seems like to me that the 49ers do want to extend Brandon Aiyuk, and they'll probably try to get it done in the late summer. I don't understand why they approach it that way or the advantage for them in doing it that way, but it sounds like that's what they want to do. Whereas Brandon Aiyuk is like, dude, if you don't pay me, I will force a trade here, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, let's compare this to what Debo did, right? Debo 2 years ago was up for an extension, wanted a lot of money, had a good resume, asked for a trade. And it didn't get him more money. It didn't get him a trade. I think Brandon Aiyuk, kind of little brother syndrome, watched that and realized it's not going to help if I ask for a trade. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will. I don't think he will. It's not going to really help. And I think what you can do is sort of make little innuendo on social media, get your point across without crossing a line. Because if you ultimately do come back to the team, you don't want to like alienate your relationship with the fans and the coaches and everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame Brandon Aiyuk. I don't blame any of these players, man. This is like your real contract, right? There's no guarantee that he's going to get a third contract. You know, your first contract is your rookie contract. This is the contract where you need to get your bag. You need to get your money because it can change your whole family's life for generations. So I completely understand where Brandon Aiyuk is coming from here. He wants to get as much as he can. And that's probably more important to him than whatever team he's going to. And I know a lot of fans take that a little personal. Some of them do, but they shouldn't. I mean, if you are in his situation, you got to go after the money that's going to change your generations of your family's life. And this is the biggest opportunity. There's no guarantee he gets another contract after this. This is the opportunity where he has to capitalize. So I respect what Brandon Aiyuk's doing.
It does kind of feel like he's being emotional. Maybe I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it seems like Aiyuk is upset, angry. Like as soon as John Lynch spoke today, he had something to say on social media. He was crying in the locker room after they lost the Super Bowl, the day after or the 2 days after. I think, Debo Samuel's always had this really close relationship with Kyle. They're friends. I don't think Aiyuk feels that way towards anyone necessarily in the organization that's not a player. And I think he probably has a lot of resentment built up from any number of things. Being put in the doghouse, the way that they always reference that, Kyle has high expectations and Aiyuk wasn't exactly meeting them right away, to the fact that they don't really trust him in big moments, feature him in big games. And that culminated in him getting 40 yards in the Super Bowl. I think he has a lot of resentment built up towards the organization that I don't think even Debo, who requested a trade, necessarily had. Like, the Niners featured Debo. They gave him all the touches he could handle and then some. Aiyuk hasn't had that treatment.
Yeah, to me, there's no question in my mind that what Brandon Aiyuk wants more than anything is to be paid. I think you're right. He showed his emotions after the Super Bowl, and I think those emotions came from being frustrated with his use in the Super Bowl as well as losing. I'm sure he thinks he could have made a big difference in the outcome of that game had they featured him more. So there's two things I think Brandon Aiyuk wants. One, probably the money over everything else. I'm sure that's the most important thing at this. It's a business. But two, he wants to be featured in an offense where they will utilize him to his full capabilities. And so there's no doubt in my mind that Brandon Aiyuk would leave at the drop of a hat for the right situation. If he can go to a team that's going to pay him more and feature him in the offense, zero question that Brandon Aiyuk would do that. Wouldn't do that.
Here's where Brandon Aiyuk's in a tough spot, though. The Niners want him. They've made it really clear. And I know they said similar stuff about DeForest Buckner, but they didn't draft Buckner. This organization traded up for Aiyuk and drafted him and developed him. And they say they want him, and they can make him play out the fifth-year option of his deal. Lynch was asked point blank today, is there a possibility that Aiyuk, that you would have Aiyuk play out the fifth-year option? He said, absolutely, yes. That is one of the options. So I think the Niners didn't necessarily, they weren't married to DeForest Buckner. I think they liked Armstead just as much, and they felt Armstead was more willing to work with them financially. So it was an easy decision. Aiyuk they really want, and they have some leverage. And if they force him to sit out of training camp and come back and then play out the fifth-year option because he won't give them a deal or a break, they might do it. And really, at that point, what's he going to do? Sit out the whole year? No.
It becomes a contract year at that point, right? A lot of people think it's a contract year this past year because they can give him an extension. but it doesn't have to be. If they do the 5th-year option, next year he might sit out of training camp, but he's going to play because he's due $14 million and he doesn't want to lose that money. But more importantly, it becomes another contract year where he has to go out there and show out and earn his next check. So the 49ers do have a lot of leverage. And even though I said I understand Brandon Aiyuk's position, I also understand the 49ers position. You don't want to overpay, especially for wide receivers right now. I mean, I love Brandon Aiyuk, and he's the kind of player, like, honestly, he does everything right. There's nothing I don't like about Brandon Aiyuk. That being said, wide receivers are kind of like the position where they're like they're becoming running backs, essentially, where you could find one.
Abundant.
They're abundant. They're everywhere. And so you really don't want to be spending all this ridiculous amount of money on players. Now, Brandon Aiyuk is kind of an exception. Well, you will give him a fair offer, but you're not going to overpay him either. So, and
what's funny is, like, people say, well, you got to give the player what he wants or trade him, otherwise you'll upset him. It's like, Aiyuk's upset all the time anyway. Aiyuk's constantly upset, aggrieved. You know, he always feels like he hasn't been given a fair shake. Like, this is how he plays. It might even bring out the best in him. Who knows? Like, it seems to me if the Niners want him, he's not going anywhere. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, now, maybe if some team offers a top 10 pick, that changes things, but it doesn't look like that's what the market is.
I mean, what's he going to do? Drop balls because he's mad? No, he's going to play. And like you said, he might even play better. It becomes a contract year, and these guys got to go out and earn their money. So he's going to play. He's going to play good. So they do have that option. And honestly, like, as much as I love Brandon Aiyuk, that might be the best option. I'm not worried about Brandon Aiyuk coming in late and being out of shape. That's not Brandon Aiyuk. He's going to be ready. So that might be the smartest option. Why are we – look, I understand why players want to get paid, and they deserve to, and I get it. But I also – if you're an NFL owner, if you're the 49ers, what's the smart thing to do? And if you can't get Brandon Aiyuk to agree to a smart deal, that 5th-year option might be the smartest thing for him.
What's the first thing Jim Harbaugh did when he became the head coach of the Chargers? I mean, not the first thing, but one of the first big things he did was get rid of the 2 high-priced wide receivers in the team. Straight up.
Yeah.
Business.
Yeah.
And, sorry. Like, I was just in college. I know that these schools are producing wide receivers left and right. We're not spending $23 million a year on Keenan Allen. No.
Right. Exactly. And the 49ers are about to, if they sign Brandon Aiyuk, they're going to have 2 of them. And this is a running
team that doesn't want to pass, isn't built to pass, doesn't have the offensive line to pass.
It doesn't make sense. And to me, not only that, if you are going to keep one of these guys, I'd rather have BA over Debo at this point in Debo's career. So I don't know, man. I think the 49ers really want Brandon Aiyuk, but they're not going to overpay him. Actually, I had Croc on my show last Monday, and I asked him, like, tell me what you think the outcome is going to be to this situation. And he said, I would, if I put it into percentages, I would bet 70, like it's a 75% chance that Brandon Aiyuk plays out his 5th-year option. So he thinks that's where they're going. Yeah.
I could see that, like, from the sense that the Niners are willing to use their leverage, and Aiyuk is willing to stand on business and say, I'm not giving you a discount. Like, I've been taking the back seat on this team in this offense for years. Like, no. And so they would just take it to the very end. In which case they could franchise tag him in 2026 and still be paying him less than what he wants.
Yeah. But then after that, if you do that, you know that when that your 5th-year option's over, your franchise tag's over, you know that Brandon Aiyuk's going to leave after that point because of the way you've treated him. But maybe that doesn't bother you if you're the 49ers.
At that point, he could be 26, 27, be like, all right, go get someone who's 22. Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of maybe not spending so much on wide receivers, offensive line. That's a very important position. It's going back to Jim Harbaugh. It seemed like he really values that position, the offensive line, over wide receivers in terms of what you spend on. Not the Niners. The Niners are all about their skill position players, their defense, their defensive line, their line, everything. Offensive line is kind of a place where they try to find diamonds in the rough. Where are they looking now?
So according to, let me see, Tony Pauline, I want to make sure I point that out. The 49ers have a lot of interest. They just attended the Michigan Pro Day, and they have a lot of interest in offensive tackle Trent Jones, who I believe is the 454th ranked player overall. So this is a player they can get in late rounds or even a UDFA. And then I started looking at the 49ers offensive line, how they built them, where they came from. Trent Williams is obviously a Hall of Famer, first rounder, 4th overall pick that the 49ers traded for. They drafted Aaron Banks in the 2nd round. But after that, Jake Brendel was a UDFA, undrafted free agent that the 49ers were able to obtain. Spencer Burford was drafted 4th overall. John Feliciano was drafted in the 4th round as well. Colton McKivitz was drafted in the 5th round. So for whatever reason, obviously that blind side is extremely important, and they got a Hall of Famer over there with Trent Williams. Then they kind of invested in it with Aaron Banks, but after that, it's like UDFAs, 4th round picks, 5th round picks, which is right up this Trent Jones story. So what's interesting about it is a lot of us fans want the 49ers to invest that 31st pick in an offensive lineman, and I'm not so sure they do that.
It's just not their MO. It's not the team they are. We want them to be that team, but it seems like they have a pretty concrete philosophy that it's not an important position. And was so interesting to me was Harbaugh talking about it today. I'm going to post a video later. He went on a whole thing about how important offensive line is, because they're asking some Chargers beat writer was asking, like, how do you envision yourself building this line here? And he's like, man, I love listening to Harbaugh. He's like a professor. He's like, if I were to ask you what position group plays well all on its own and depends on no one else to play well, but every other position group depends on them to play well, what position group am I talking about?
Yeah.
Offensive line. Every other position group depends on them to play well, but their success is 100% based on what they do. It's all on them.
Yeah.
And he's saying that, like, defensive linemen are like, oh, we don't need an offensive line. We don't need a good offense. All you need is us rushing the quarterback. Harbaugh's like, yeah, but don't you like 12 play drives? Don't you like when the offense is able to sort of stay on the field? Defense line's like, yeah, it's a good point. So I just don't think Kyle thinks about it that way at all. He's thinking about big plays, quick strike, and defense, and not the virtues of a really dominant offensive line.
I mean, John Lynch laid it out, and I think he was speaking for himself as well as Kyle Shanahan when they signed with the 49ers in 2017. They also laid it out recently. I believe it was last year. They were asked the same question they were asked when they joined the 49ers, and how do you prioritize team building? And it was number 1, quarterback, which I think everybody agrees on. And it was number 2, the guy that gets after the quarterback, the guy that protects the quarterback, that stops the guys to get after the quarterback, wasn't even mentioned. It's a difference in philosophy that you see between Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and Jim Harbaugh. I tend to agree with Jim Harbaugh on this. Like, to me, if getting after the quarterback is such of importance to you, then how do you, if it's so important, then isn't it also very important to stop it? And therefore, you need the guys that protect the quarterback.
Well, Kyle kind of acts like it's the quarterback's job to protect himself. The offensive linemen, they're just there to sort of get in the way, run block, and give the quarterback a couple of seconds to execute the offense. But other than that, it's on the quarterback, which is, again, just the exact opposite of the way Jim Harbaugh thinks about that position. And he had one more little analogy, and I love the way he talks and makes me think about football. He said, the offensive line is like the fist of the offense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys working together. And it's like, yeah, man, the Niners got like 1 and 2, like two strong, like 2 knuckles, but they don't really have a fist on offense. And coming back to his original point, it limits everyone. It limits Purdy. It limits McCaffrey. It limits Debo. It especially limits Brandon Aiyuk. All of what it makes George Kittle a glorified offensive lineman half the time. It limits everyone. But Kyle, he's still doing the calc. He's like Goodwill Hunting. He's on a dry erase board. He's doing a very long equation, and in a couple of years, he'll figure out, offensive line matters. He's going to get there. He's going to get there.
And if the offensive line is a fist and all you're doing is punching with your inside finger, you're going to get a lot of boxer fractures, right? Like,
that's right.
You have to punch with the inside of the fist. Like, I agree 100% with Harbaugh. I've been saying this forever. To me, the offensive line after quarterback's the most important position. 49ers don't seem to believe that. I think they think if they just get the ball out quickly and they have a mobile quarterback, they can get by with what they got, but they're not even able to run to the right side I really hope that I'm wrong as hell about this, and I hope that when we go into the NFL draft, they're just drafting the right side of the O-line early and often, and I would be super happy to be wrong about it, but I just don't feel like that's the direction they're going to go.
It just seems like if they upgraded that right tackle spot in round 1, and went from having a serviceable right tackle to a good one, every single position group on the offense would benefit. And then position groups on the defense would benefit too, because time of possession would be different. Every single position would benefit from just one upgrade at one clear weakness. And Kyle's like, nah, we don't really do that here. We sort of like that weakness. We like sort of playing with one arm tied behind our back. It's what we do. Because I get credit. People say I'm a genius because I can call plays with one arm tied behind my back. Man, just free yourself.
Yeah, I would love if, like a Guyton or a Mims falls to the 49ers. I don't think it's likely. But Kingsley, I'm not going to butcher his last name, from BYU, will be available. And I watched a lot of film on him this weekend. I'm really intrigued by him. I hope they go after him or even move up and get the Guyton or a Mims or somebody like that and really invest in this offensive line on that right side. That would make me extremely happy as a 49ers fan. I just don't see it happening. I think they're going to go best player available. They might get a corner or even a wide receiver early in this draft, or even a defensive tackle. I would be thrilled, though, if they go offensive line.
It was just, they won't. You're right. It was just so refreshing to hear someone I really respect, a champion, sort of giving like a poetic ode to the offensive line when it's been so devalued on the 49ers the last 7 years. I mean, it's just such a like, don't mess up position, get the best you can get for the cheapest you can get. Like John Lynch was asked about the McKivitz extension today, and he basically said, like, I mean, we thought he filled in pretty well for Mike McGlinchey. Like, so basically what you said was he was 90% of Mike McGlinchey for 50%, like 20% of the price. Like, okay, that's a really low bar. It's a really low bar.
You know that, and I don't know what PFF, how much you guys value it, but McGlinchey's ranked 50th out of all tackles that played at least 10 games. 50th, 5-0 out of all the tackles. I mean, there's only 64 that start in the NFL, and he's ranked 50th. And the fact,
so basically, he wasn't the worst.
Wasn't the worst.
He wasn't the worst. Well,
he played like a 5th round tackle. That's what he played like. Brindell plays like a undrafted free agent.
That Colton McKivitz would never start for Jim Harbaugh unless the starter was hurt and he had no choice.
Yeah. I mean, look at Brindell, undrafted free agent. Burford, Feliciano, 4th rounders. McKivitz, 5th rounder. And guess what? They play like it. And that's just not good enough.
No. All right, let's check out our sponsor, BetUS, and see the odds for Coach of the Year. I hate this award. It's a stupid award when the best coach in the league has the worst odds to win the award. I don't care. If you're the best coach in the league, you should be in the running every year to win the Coach of the Year award, because you probably are the Coach of the Year. But you have to be like a first-year coach, or you have to exceed someone else's expectations, which probably are wrong anyway. So, of course, Harbaugh, odds-on favorite to win. And Kyle Shanahan, plus 3,500.
Yeah, I would bet on Harbaugh right now to win this award. Yeah.
It's like he already won it.
He won it. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he does. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really about who does the most with the least, or who turns around their franchise the most. Chargers, didn't even make the playoffs last year. Now they're probably going to make it with Jim Harbaugh, I would guess. So I would be surprised. Plus, Jim Harbaugh's, he's a damn near a face of the NFL. He's one of them, and he's beloved by a lot of them. It's a good storyline. I would be shocked if this man doesn't win this award.
Yeah. At the same time, though, like, it's a lot like exceeding expectations, and that's subjective. And everyone kind of expects Jim Harbaugh to turn this team around immediately because it's what he's done at every stop. So there could be some guy like Brian Callahan with the Titans. If Brian Callahan goes 9-8 with the Titans, people might be so freaking impressed because no one expected it to happen that he could win the Coach of the Year, which is why I hate this award, because I feel like I should win these $70 betting on Harbaugh. But Brian freaking Callahan and his 9 wins could win the award.
Yeah, it's a strange award. It's hard to, because I think there's times where Kyle might have deserved it. But at this point, guys like Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid,
They're
not
expected to
gonna
be good.
They're expected to be good. So it is an expectation, like over, doing better than your expectations. That's really what this is about.
Yeah. So people have low expectations here. Brian Callahan, who I wasn't really aware that he was a coach. I saw him today, though. I was like, who is that guy? Oh, he's the coach of the Titans. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And you're going to be drinking with him tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to be trying to keep it light, though. Like Batman, when he goes out, he's just like fake drinking.
Yeah.
Water. Offensive Player of the Year award next year.
Offensive
long
player
shot.
Of the year.
I want like a real long shot. Like I want to like win some real money.
Who's on there?
Brandon Aiyuk. Oh, yes, because he's going to be in a 5th-year contract here. Can we bet on it? Yes. You already know I want to. $10.
Not going to happen. Okay.
Excuse me?
It's a good return.
I want that.
Yeah.
I don't care. That's just good action.
It's worth it.
This is one thing I learned in life. That's just good action.
It's good action, boss. Yeah.
All right, one more. Let's see where we're at. We're defensive player of the year.
What's the word? Defensive player of the year?
It's terrible action.
Honestly, I think it's going to be TJ Watt, man. I think he's been skipped over a couple of times. Probably should be him. But
yeah, probably his. But I'm going to put my money on Talanoa Hufanga because I like the action.
Not that action.
He's the playmaker.
Yeah.
Oh, I like my bets now. All right, if you want to get in there, check this out. Hold on. Wait a second.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
All right, moving on. More news. Jed York used to be the CEO of the 49ers, which seemed kind of like a fancy title that meant my mom still owns the team. But she lets me do her work because she doesn't really feel like living out here. But now it seems like he's saved up enough money in his piggy bank that he can finally buy out his mom. I don't know if he's buying her out with her money that he saved up over allowances and mowing lawns. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And now pretty soon he could say that it's actually really his team, which is, a big step for him. I remember where I was, how old I was when I could finally say I owned a football team all by myself. It's a good feeling. It's a step that every man goes through. It's very relatable.
Yeah, right. It's just my overall feeling about it is just less accountability. Something that I think this team has lacked a little bit over the last over this whole era of Jed York, and it just means even less now because at least when Jed was screwing up, Uncle would come to training camp and point things out and kind of crack the whip a little bit.
That's
things
a good point.
Right. That may not happen or may not matter.
It wasn't the uncle. It was the dad, John York.
The
dad. Eddie doesn't come by. Eddie's retired, but the dad would come by like, do I have to show up? Do I have to fire someone? I would prefer not to do this.
Yeah.
That was the vibe I was getting. I couldn't actually hear him talk. He doesn't talk like that.
And now Jed can be like, I don't care what you say, Dad. It doesn't matter. It's my team now, Dad.
I do a feature with Rob called Irresponsible Speculation, kind of. Irresponsible speculation. Yeah. I want to do a little bit of that with the whole Jed thing. Here's how I interpret the Jed era. I think they gave him the team and they gave him a lot of power early on, especially with Harbaugh. I think he kind of messed that relationship up. And then I think he hired Tom Sula, and then I think he hired Chip Kelly, and he was doing a lot. And I think his plan, and I can't prove it, was to fire Chip Kelly, keep Trent Baalke, and sort of keep along that process, hire another coach. I get the feeling that the mom or the parents said, dude, enough. You've been really trying hard here. We're going to get together as a family and really do an exhaustive search, talk to all the people we trust. And they landed on Kyle Shanahan, and they give him like an extension every 6 months. And I have a feeling it's sort of like the family's decision. Like, look, we were really kind of embarrassed there for a while. We were a laughingstock. We had no stability as an organization. Kyle is good for our bottom line. Let's just be stable. I don't know if Jed's in his nature to be like that. Now that they're potentially taking a back seat, this is the guy that fired Jim Harbaugh. This is a guy
Yeah.
that wants to be Eddie DeBartolo's heir apparent. Eddie might have fired Kyle by now. So maybe this is the dawn of an era of more accountability for Kyle Shanahan. I don't know.
I don't know. I think Jed is just he's completely. This is his boy. This is his boy, Kyle. Right? Like, there's no
Similar age, similar upbringing, similar story. Have a lot in common.
Yeah, this is his boy, man. I don't think Jed York's gonna be moving from Kyle Shanahan. As long as Kyle Shanahan is making the playoffs every year, he changed, right? And this is that opportunity. I want to remind you that the question I would love you to ask Jed York if you get an opportunity.
He talks. Yeah.
You told us when you fired Jim Harbaugh that you're not okay raising NFC championship banners, and that if you don't win Super Bowls to hold you accountable. This year, you talked about the season would have been a success even if they lost the NFC championship game.
Yeah.
Has something changed with your philosophy? It's a great opportunity, and it might answer some of the questions that we're talking about right now.
If he talks tomorrow, I'll ask him. Last year he did talk. It was sort of like a surprise. Here's Jed. So I'll hang around tomorrow afternoon and see if he's there, because he needs to answer that question. It's a really important, pertinent question. But I'd like to see the return of Eddie DeBartolo Jr. Eddie DeBartolo the third.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Fire someone. It's been a while. You haven't done it in like 7 years. You were like firing master. You were Donald Trump Jr. You're fired.
I would wager that Jed York does stick around to speak, because now he's the big dog, right?
Who's gonna tell him not to? Nobody.
Right. No one.
He definitely wants to talk.
Yeah.
All right, new potential new rule. They haven't voted on it yet, but the NFL may drastically change the kickoff rules. Which, I mean, before we can decide whether or not we like the potential change, we have to really
understand
it. And they've changed this freaking rule so many times that now it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's what the XFL was doing the last couple of years, and like none of us were watching the XFL, or maybe some of you were. I wasn't, so that didn't really help much. Basically, I listened to a bunch of owners talk about it today. What they said was, by increasing the number, like moving the kickoff up, they increased the number of touchbacks, which decreased the number of injuries, but didn't decrease the injury rate. Still an inherently dangerous play. So what they're doing is putting the offense and defensive players, like they're lining them up 5 yards away from each other, so there isn't that big run-up collision. And they're trying to de-incentivize touchbacks. They want returns. And they mentioned that Devin Hester was inducted in the Hall of Fame this year. He's an important part of the sport, and Devin Hester couldn't have had an impact in the game today because of the way the rules are. So they're saying if you kick the ball into the end zone on a fly, other team gets the ball at the 30. So they're really trying to get teams to pin it in that little area, get a return, and not have a huge collision between the other, 21 people on the field. I get it. It seems a little confusing, but I like kick returns. So I get it. Touchbacks freaking stink. And this whole, like, let's everyone line up and kick the ball out of the end zone. And then, like, what's the points? Why don't you just skip all that? So I'm with it. Yeah.
I think it's a good idea, right? Trying to reduce injuries and increase kickoff returns. I believe also none of the players can move until it's caught, until the ball is caught. Yeah. So I think it will increase the returns, and it might actually make it more exciting, which I'm kind of in favor of. They seem to be moving back and forth a lot on it, and they need to kind of hash out exactly what they're going to be doing. But I favor it, right? Keep the players healthy, see more kickoff returns, because watching the NFL, it's like, why even do it? Like the way it was going last year is like, why even do it? Like, just save us some time, put the ball in the 20 at this point, because it's a touchback damn near every single time. You're not getting any returns, and it's just like commercial kickoff, touchback, commercial. It's getting old. So hopefully this rule does go through, and hopefully it's a good change. I watched a little bit of the XFL, and it seemed to work well there. So I'm in favor of it, man. I think it'll be a good thing. I want to see a lot more returns than we have been seeing, and I'm interested to see how the blocking looks when you lined up like this.
Absolutely. And I think the kickoff is a very exciting play in football. It's a quintessentially football play. It's exciting. You shouldn't take it out, but the excitingness about it isn't necessarily, the 20 players who run into each other from 40 yards away. That's not really what people are watching. They're watching the returner. Does he get tackled? So moving those other players closer together and eliminating those big collisions, I don't think anyone's going to care. Just as long as the kick returner doesn't just take a knee, people are going to be happy. That's good. I hope this passes.
You're going to see it's going to look a lot like punt coverage, punt returns, right? Like where you're going to have 10 guys basically blocking like the punt returners do right now, right? Where they're running back together trying to block the entire time. It's going to be interesting. I think that we could see a lot of different things become of it, right? A lot of different trick plays, different ways that you can return the ball. So I think it's a good thing.
I agree. One more rule change from the annual meeting: hip drop tackles are now outlawed. This was the one that Jimmy Ward did on Tony Pollard a couple years ago in the playoffs at Levi's Stadium, broke his ankle, something like that. I guess it's essentially the player wraps up the ball carrier around the hip and then just drops weight and spins around. They said hip drops are okay, but the hip drop with the swivel, not okay.
Yeah.
So
how are they going to determine swivels? Like the refs,
they actually said that
no swivel, a little swivel. I'm not sure.
He didn't swivel.
No swiveling. Yeah, and then they also have to land. I read the rule. They have to land on the leg or an ankle. So I'm not sure if like you can do a hip drop tackle.
You can hip drop as long as there's no swivel and no ankle landage.
It's confusing. It's just another rule that favors the offense and makes it harder to play defense in this league. And another reason why, if you're a GM or head coach in the NFL, you need to start really prioritizing your offense, maybe the offensive line, and really focus on your offense in the passing game, because that's what the NFL wants. They want to see heavy passing games. They want to see touchdowns.
And changing the kickoff rule would be another way to increase scoring. So what I think is so interesting about the NFL's mission to increase scoring is that they've failed at it. Like it changed so many rules. And I was listening to, I believe it's Jeffrey Lurie, I forget, the owner of the Eagles, I believe, was explaining like, oh, no, it was Rich McKay. Is Rich McKay on the Buccaneers? I'm sorry, I cover the NFL. I should know. But Rich McKay was explaining, look, generally football games, there's an average of 45 points in an NFL game. Generally. Mm-hmm. And last year was at like 43.5. So they're just like trying to get the score back up to average, which I couldn't freaking believe. It's like offense has all the advantage and scoring's down. Two things. One, give defensive coaches credit. They're really smart. They're really freaking smart. And also, like, I think you were seeing the effects of like Brady being gone and Peyton being gone and Rodgers being out and Breeze being out. It's just like, it's not quite the same caliber of quarterback play anymore.
Yeah, I think quarterbacks in general has dropped a little bit as of recent. Maybe some of these other guys will step up as they develop. CJ Stroud, maybe Purdy, guys like that will get better in this coming year. But I really think it's about defenses, right? They're getting smarter. Their linebackers are faster now. They're using two high safeties a lot of the time. They're worried about the deep pass. So what it's doing is, even though the NFL wanted more touchdowns, more big plays, more explosiveness, it's become the opposite now. It's a dink and dunk league. Safeties are keeping everything underneath, and you have linebackers that can run. So it's actually had the opposite effect of what they wanted. But this new rule is another rule catered towards the offense.
I mean, it's just interesting with all these rules catered to the offense. The score at the end of regulation, the Super Bowl, was 19-19.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And it's like the league is trying so hard to get more scoring, more offense, and failing because, I don't know, defensive coaches are really good or their rules aren't working. I don't know. Or Kyle Shanahan's system's overrated. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. They're adjusting. And then, again, they're keeping everything underneath. So it's a lot of dink and dunk, a lot less explosive plays. Defensive coaches are adjusting. That's the thing, though. No matter what rules you make, defensive coaches are going to figure out a way to adjust to it. Now, this hip drop tackle thing is tough because if you're like, if you wrap up a guy from the side or from the back, pause,
Pause.
What are you supposed to do at that point? Like, are you supposed to outrun the guy and force him down forward and give him 5 more yards? Like, I don't understand how you're supposed to tackle in that situation. And it sounds like it's a 15-yard penalty, automatic first down, but it's really probably in the beginning going to be more about finding guys. So I just don't understand what their expectations are. If you're in that situation, how do you tackle? What do they want you to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. It seems like this rule change is like designed to make the league look like they care about player safety. Same with the kickoff thing, but really it's more about increasing scoring.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it. And so our defenders, I don't even know if defenders are going to, like, how are they going to do that? Like, if they're in that situation in the moment, are they going to be like, oh, well, this is a hip drop tackle, I can't do this? Are they? It's not something that's even trained, right? It's just a natural way to tackle somebody. You're trying to get them on the ground. And if you fall down, that's what's going to happen. I don't even see how you can train defenders to do it differently. So again, I think you're right. I'm not sure if it's going to reduce the amount of them, or what it's going to do is it's a PR type thing. Hey, we're looking out. That's illegal. You can't do that. And then players are just going to get fined.
I find it interesting that scoring is down. I mean, is there something to the fact that maybe the lack of practice time, like it's harder to install and keep together a really good offense, whereas a defense, you can get young talent and make it, and you could put together pretty. I don't know. It feels like something structural about the league is hurting offenses. Maybe if how many teams even develop quarterbacks anymore? Like, you draft a guy in round 1, play him a couple years, he sucks, and you move on. Like, there's just no quarterback development in the league anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one quarterback that's getting developed right now, supposedly, is our guy Trey Lance on the Cowboys. That's their plan for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
just
I
like
don't know,
Kenny
man.
Pickett's getting developed in Philly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of quarterback play has gone down in general, and maybe that has something to do with what NFL is doing versus what colleges are doing. There's not a lot of NFL ready college programs out there. That it's kind of a different offense, the way they do things, and maybe that really should be. It kind of favors what you've been talking about, whereas the NFL really needs like a G League, because what they're doing in college isn't preparing them for what they need to do in the NFL, at least from a quarterback standpoint.
No, and Harbaugh was talking very much a lot today. I thought it was so interesting because he's coached in both, and he understands what colleges are sending to the pros. And he was adamant today. I don't know how much stock you put in it, that JJ McCarthy is the best quarterback in the draft. He coached JJ McCarthy, but his point is like, look, he may not be the most gifted, although he might be, but when it comes to actually playing quarterback, he did it the best. And that's an interesting distinction. You hear Kyle Shanahan talk about it as well. Are you really playing the position? And I think when you see a guy like Caleb Williams, you watch his highlights, it's off-schedule stuff, extending plays, getting outside the pocket, stuff that translates to the NFL. But you're not really playing the position the way it's coached to be played. And how many guys are being groomed to play the position in college football anymore? Or are they just on bubble screens all day?
Not me, not many. And that's why JJ McCarthy's stock might be rising. I mean, Harbaugh is cool, man, because what I love about Harbaugh is he's very loyal to his players. Like, a lot of people are down and out on Colin Kaepernick and not Harbaugh. He was out there speaking about how great Colin Kaepernick was. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe he's just building up JJ McCarthy to help him out because he's loyal to his players. Or maybe he really believes this. Personally, I think he's going to roll with Herbert, and he's probably just trying to build up McCarthy, who played for him, and he's a good guy like that. I don't think it really necessarily means anything, but back to your point, maybe what we could see is, look at Brock Purdy's success. What we could see is guys like McCarthy having success because they're more ready for this game than some of these other quarterbacks are, and I think that has a lot to do with why scoring is down.
It seems like, some of these quarterbacks like McCarthy and Purdy in particular, come into the league so polished. Like, they've been going to these camps, they've been starting since high school. They've seen it all. So certain prospects are ready to go. And I feel like the fact that some young quarterbacks hit right away and other ones take development makes teams impatient. It's like, well, if Purdy's ready to go, why are we spending 3 years developing someone who might become Jordan Love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But one more thing I want to say about what Harbaugh was talking about today. I thought it was interesting. He was talking about Justin Herbert. I asked him, like, what do you like? What do you like about him? And why are you eager to coach him? And he's like, well, you watch the film, he can throws, obviously. But what I think he's, all about the team, which is like, okay, right.
Who's frozen? Is it me or is it Grant?
Never mind. Am I here? Sorry. Hotels.
Is that you frozen or
janky
me?
Wi-Fi.
I
think it's me.
That's hard to tell. Okay.
Sorry about
Bring
that.
it back. What'd you just say about Harbaugh?
So I was talking about Harbaugh. I asked him about Justin Herbert and what he liked about him. He's like, obviously he can make all the throws, and he's a team guy. He's about winning. But now we got to like show that he can win. He said that in so many words. Like, I want the challenge of being in the AFC West and competing against the Chiefs, and I'm sure Justin Herbert does too. Like, he was sort of like hyping him up. But my interpretation is he thinks, man, the guy physically can do it all. But what kind of a competitor is he? And I'm not saying he wrote him off. He hasn't coached him yet. But I think a lot of people might wonder that about Justin Herbert. Like, what kind of competitor are you really? You're a 500 career quarterback. You didn't win that much in college either. Like, obviously, you can throw a pretty spiral, but like, where is your competitiveness and your leadership? I thought it was interesting for him to say that. And then when he's asked about McCarthy, he's like, oh my God, this is the best pro day of all time. Straight face, the best pro day I've ever seen. And people were telling me that unsolicited. It was like, cool, man. It's not your son.
He does kind of do that though. He does act like a father to a lot of his players. He did that with Cap. I think that's a lot of what this is. He looks at them like their sons. As a former coach, I kind of look at my former players like that. And Jim Harbaugh is definitely like that guy. Kyle looks more like these guys are his peers in general, more than he's a father figure. So it's a little different.
True.
So that may be what it is. I think the thing about Herbert, man, is he's had such crappy defenses that it's like until they get that defense locked into where it's at least mediocre, then it's hard to judge Herbert for a quarterback.
It was just crazy to me to see how much Harbaugh's aged. His first year with the Niners was my first year on the beat, and he was not quite 50 years old then. Now I think he's in his 60s. He's got gray hair. He looks a lot like his dad. And he used to be so like disagreeable, like really looking to argue with any type of question. Now he like laughs a lot. He has fun with the media. Like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
I thought it was just kind of wild to see an older, kind of mellow Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah. When I was writing for Bleacher Report, it was the first year. I think me and you both started that same year. Yeah, where Jim Harbaugh took over, and he was like that. It does make you wonder if Kyle Shanahan, who is my age, 44, has room for that growth as well. And maybe the thing with Kyle is winning a Super Bowl, right? He probably feels some type of way about it, not being able to win a Super Bowl and that being the narrative around him. So maybe we'll see growth from Kyle Shanahan if he, in fact, actually wins a Super Bowl and that pressure comes off of his shoulders.
Yeah. Well, maybe, we compare him to Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. Those guys became champions in their 60s after getting close and failing for a long time. And it was interesting to so maybe Kyle will gain some wisdom and become a champion later in his life or sooner. It was just interesting to see Harbaugh with the wisdom and the age, but not just that, but the confidence and swagger of being a champion. It's a different Harbaugh. Right. The Harbaugh we knew was the Harbaugh who had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, who was a little bit defensive, who was a little bit cognizant of the fact that he hadn't won the big one, kind of like Kyle. Yeah. This Harbaugh was like, man, let me tell you about how it's done. It was very interesting to see him like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could imagine. Did you posted a little bit something on your channel? I didn't see it. I was busy this morning.
I had terrible freaking Wi-Fi at the Ritz-Carlton, wherever it was. So I'm going to post it now. It's worth watching. It's about a half an hour. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that. I'm a big Harbaugh guy, man. I really liked him. He was a little bit confrontational back in the day, but even with that, I really liked him and enjoyed him. I just liked his demeanor. I liked how he interacted with your father, Lowell. Yeah. So Harbaugh is going to be making me watch a lot of Chargers games this year, man.
Yeah, I think he and his brother are two of the more interesting coaches in football. two of the better coaches in football. And I saw Harbaugh was in such an agreeable mood. Usually when he was with the Niners, he would disagree with the premise of everyone's question. Like you couldn't get a question out because he would just disagree with how you phrased it or something. He doesn't do that anymore except for one time. Someone that was covering the Seahawks came over and asked him questions about Mike McDonald, the new coach over there, who was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. And the way he phrased the question, he was like, so can you sort of talk a little bit about Mike McDonald's defense, like why it's been so successful? Harbaugh goes, Mike McDonald's defense or John Harbaugh's defense? I mean, John Harbaugh's been there. Like, so he answered the question, like, the results speak for themselves, but, John Harbaugh, Mike McDonald, all of them really did a good job putting that defense together. It's like, yeah, that's right. Stick up for your brother. Like,
yeah.
Excuse me, Mike McDonald? Like, I'm sorry. He's 35 years old. What are you talking about? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And there's actually a lot of truth to that. That really is John Harbaugh's defense. So we'll see if Seahawks made a good move or not with that hire. My instinct says no, because that probably is John Harbaugh's defense over his.
Yeah.
So
I would think
that's interesting. Yeah.
I would think so. It was just cool to have Harbaugh back. He's such a big personality, and I think he's good for football. And I think Kyle ultimately is good for football too. He needs a little wisdom. I'll tell him that tonight when we're drinking. Kyle, I'm gonna shut the fuck up right now because I actually have to see Kyle tonight and be nice, and he could be like, "Hey, Kyle, hey, I saw all that shit you were talking. Saw all that shit you were talking." Like, remember when Draymond checked Bonte? I could get some of that action from Kyle. So we'll see.
You don't want that, man. Kyle, you know what I would love? I want you and Kyle Shanahan to just develop the best relationship ever. That could happen tonight.
See, part of me wants that.
Yeah.
I like talking about parts of myself because I feel like everyone has parts of themselves, and
it's
not. You want different. Part of me wants that because I've known him for 7 years, and it would be really cool. The other part of me wants to keep a distance because I like being able to criticize him when I have to. And I feel like if me and him just really hit it off tonight and just become drinking buddies, then I'll like hold back, and I can't. I'm not. We could be friends after he retires, but for now, I gotta bring the high heat. Sorry, it's the majors.
Do you walk up to Kyle and just like, look, Kyle, let me get you a drink, buddy. Come on over and let's talk.
I'm not buying Kyle a drink. I'm thinking that dude makes like 10 plus million a year. I'm thinking it's probably going to be open bar. So I figure he'll have his own drink. I figure if I brought a drink up to him, it'd be kind of weird and he might think that I spiked it. So I'll get my own drink. And then my plan is to babysit it because I'm essentially, I know it's not working time, but I want to remember the night. So I'm going to be observant, sip my little drink, and be nice. But I won't like be all up in his face like, hey, Kyle, how you doing? Because he might be like, you know what, Grant, I don't like the stuff that you wrote about me. Go away, which would be fair. So I'll be there. If he wants to talk to me, he can talk.
Is it just coaches or will Lynch and York be there as well?
I've never done this before. This is my first time. So
it's going to be fun, man. You're going to enjoy it. Yeah.
Look, if Lynch is there, I'm cool with Lynch. Lynch is, I don't know if he likes me, but he's cordial and professional. He'll shake my hand. Kyle might be like, look, I got you all alone, motherfucker. Look who knows? I can't wait. But I think he's going to do whatever he's going to do with a smile because my feeling is that he never wants to let anyone see him sweat.
Yeah.
That he wants to maintain the like, I'm cool, I'm above it, but I fucking hate you.
You know, the thing though, man, is like, I feel like a lot of these people understand, you know, they're at the highest level of coaching and they get it. You have a job to do, they have a job to do. And that may not mean that you guys say the same things or like each other at times, but I think he understands that you're out here doing your job and he probably doesn't take it personal necessarily. Whether he likes you or not, I don't know. I don't know about that.
I'm nervous. I wonder if Kyle's nervous too, because we've never done this. And I got a call from the PR director today, not to reveal a private conversation, but he said, Grant, I just want to remind you, like, this is not a work event. Like, relax. I was like, relax. What do you mean? Like, do they think I'm something like this intense?
High strung. Yeah.
Yeah, like, man, I'm more relaxed than you are. What are you talking about?
Man.
I'm gonna have a good time. Open bar. Damn.
Yeah, you're gonna have a great time. I wish there was a camera in the room though. I know there's probably not gonna be no cameras or anything like that, but I wish there was. It would be fun to watch.
Like, does Kyle think like off the record with no cameras around? I'm gonna be like, so what'd you learn in the Super Bowl, man? How come you just like, dude, like, let's relax. All right, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is like it's not a work night, man. You guys are there to have a good time and
I
socialize.
love talk about football.
Yeah. This good.
What should we talk about besides football? What's another conversation topic we could talk about?
Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll bring that up. Little
Yeezys. I love your hat game, Coach. I love your hat game, Kyle. Mean hat game, dude. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to go mentally prepare for that. It's gonna be a lot. Going to be a lot of fun if I start defending Kyle Shanahan left and right and never criticize him again. You already know what happened. But if I get real critical tomorrow, you already know it. You're gonna know what happened too. So
yeah,
my entire relationship depends on tonight. We'll see what happens.
I can't wait to hear about this. I'm excited.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow.